Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. A tense standoff in BC's interior.
I looked at it truly in horror and I said, oh, this is going to be bad.
And the return home for people in other fire-ravaged regions. Plus, impaired driving charges a year after a beloved Vernon couple is killed.
Our day-to-day, our minute by minute, it's like endless suffering for us.
Why friends and family are speaking out now about what they call the slow-moving justice system. And the pumpkin spice latte is back.
I don't care for them.
Honestly, I like them. I'm not gonna lie.
The love-hate relationship British Columbians have with the drink.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight in BC's North Shuswap region, where there's increased tension tonight. A group of protesters stormed a wildfire barricade, igniting fear in fire crews, which then considered pulling back from the area. As John Hernandez reports, the incident marks the latest in a series of conflicts over the ongoing fire response.
People are restricted from their homes, restricted from their livelihood.
They called themselves the Convoy of Truth and Freedom. About 20 of them descended on this roadblock, demanding to be let into the wildfire evacuation zone, saying they wanted to deliver supplies.
Their intention was to cross that evacuation line.
In the middle of the standoff, the BC Wildfire Service posted on social media saying it planned to pull crews out of the area out of fear for their safety.
I looked at it truly in horror and I said, oh, this is going to be bad.
District Representative Jay Simpson, who is in the evacuation zone, says he pleaded with BC Wildfire to stay.
That is not me. That's not our community. It's not where we wanted to go.
After speaking with police, BC Wildfire deleted its post.
The choice was made in an effort to not give something steam that didn't and doesn't deserve to have it.
The incident, a flashpoint amid ongoing tensions in BC's Shuswap region, where 11,000 people are on evacuation order and the fire still burns out of control. Many have stayed to fight the fire themselves, claiming the area is over-policed and underserved by wildfire crews. Still, RCMP say the protesters weren't from the area.
We don't know what their intentions may be, and in addition to that, it's just clearly just not safe.
Residents on both sides of the barricade are frustrated.
Let the emergency crews do what they need to do. Just sit there and keep everybody safe. This is where I saw most of the action was right here.
Sorrento resident Daniel Shoemaker works in the fire zone.
But if you're not from that community, stay out. You have no right being over there.
After days of telling people in the evacuation zone to leave, the province recently pledged to work with them. Many hope this latest mishap won't set that progress back. John Hernandez, CBC News, Sorrento.
For more on that situation, our Justin McElroy joins us live now. Justin, we heard from John about the province pledging to work with people who've stayed in the evacuation zone. What's the latest on that?
It was interesting, Anita. Today was the first day since Monday, actually, where Premier David Eby or any members of his cabinet did not speak about the fire in the Shuswap area, and that was deliberate. They're trying right now to talk to people on the ground to try and lower the temperature, to not say anything that might inflame tensions or cause consternation, so that they can try and find that cooperation that John spoke to, which includes both having ways that volunteers can help with the wildfires as well, who live in the area, as well as some ownership over the blockades. Those talks are still ongoing, nothing public yet from either side at this point, but like you can see in some negotiations, silence sometimes a good sign.
So does last night's incident look like a setback in terms of progress in building cooperation with the wildfire service and people living in the area?
It doesn't look like that, particularly because people are fairly confident that the 10 to 20 or so people that showed up were virtually all from outside the Shuswap region. But it shows just how tenuous this situation is right now, and the stress over the deleted Facebook post saying that they were getting out of the region, and just how fragile this situation is. is, we're going to be entering tomorrow the second week of this region being under an evacuation order, yet hundreds of people still in the area. There's a lot still to resolve. The fire is still quite close, and there's no timeline for removing that order. So there's a lot for them to figure out. Last night's incident certainly showcased just how things could fall apart quickly depending on the situation.
Justin McElroy live tonight. Thank you. All right, so that's the Shuswap region. Let's turn now to Colona, where some people are returning home today with evacuation orders being lifted. Of course, important to acknowledge that not everyone does have a home to return to. Janella Hamilton joins us live with the latest on what's happening in Colona. Janella?
Anita, a final sweep is being done of some of the impacted areas to make sure there aren't any more hazards, but more residents are able to go home today. It's because both the Clifton and McKinley fire in Colona and the Clark Creek wildfire in Lake Country are now classified as being held, which means they are not likely to spread under current conditions. Last night, 309 properties were taken off evacuation orders in the West Colona area, along with a number of other areas in the district of Lake Country, with more orders being lifted today. It's being called a step in the right direction, but officials are urging people to be patient with the process.
There's two main reasons why we're continuing to keep people out of their homes. The first is because there's still fire in your neighborhood and or significant damage from fire in your neighborhood. And the second reason is that there is the risk still of fire. And we're still not wanting to put you back in because we don't want to make it worse. We need to address the risk and make sure there's no chance of things getting worse, because I don't want to have to evacuate anyone a second time.
Brolin hopes to have evacuation orders in the city reduced to alerts by the end of today, but the BC Wildfire Service says while weather has been favorable, temperatures are expected to rise going into the weekend, and crews are expected to see an increase in fire activity in the Grouse Complex wildfires, particularly the McDougall Creek wildfire near West Colona, which is burning out of control at a size of 12,300 hectares.
And Janella, we've seen so much community support throughout all of these fires. We always do with disasters in this province. And you have another touching story to tell us.
Yeah, that's right, Anita. The chief of Wilson's Landing Fire Department in the Okanagan says 13 of his members lost their homes in the McDougall Creek fire last week, but continued to show up for duty to try and save the homes of other residents in the small community.
Our community has suffered an incredible blow. 13 of our members have lost homes. Yet from the very first spark, you've shown up and fought this fire while your own homes were burning behind you. I have no words to describe the pride that I feel to be part of this team.
As for flights in and out of Kelowna International Airport, flights are moving once again, but several airspace restrictions remain, which could affect arrivals and departures. So far, officials have confirmed 181 properties have been damaged by the fires in the Kelowna area. Further assessments to figure out the full scale of the destruction are continuing today.
Janella Hamilton live tonight. Thank you. Well, smoke is once again blanketing Lytton as two wildfires burn out of control nearby.
So about, I think it's about 10 to 15 miles north of us is the Stein fire, and about another 10 miles south of us is the Kukupee fire.
The village just ended a local state of emergency only months ago. It's been in place for almost 2 years after a devastating wildfire. Now the village is facing an evacuation alert.
You know, it's everybody deals with it differently, of course, but it is triggering because we went through that fire in 2021 here. The smoke is very, very thick, and it doesn't matter which way the wind decides to blow. You know, we're inundated with smoke here. This morning is a little tiny bit clearer, but it's still, you can hardly see the hills across from us.
Earlier this week, dozens more people were told to leave their homes in the Lytton First Nation Reserve area as strong winds fueled the Stein Mountain wildfire, burning 12 kilometers northwest of the village. Well, this summer, tens of thousands of British Columbians have been told to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. But what are the essentials you need to make your own emergency go bag? Vicky Swan with the BC government has a list.
You will want to have food with you. Enough for a day is really terrific. I like to take a big water bottle in my grab-and-go bag and have some food. Again, I take enough to get me through the day, so I've got a variety of things. I've got granola bars and I've got dried fruits and I've got nuts and some treats for me as well. Communications is really important when you're in an evacuation situation, so you want to make sure that you communicate and find out what's going on. Super critical to have your phone with you and make sure you have a phone charger. If your phone dies, you'd want to have a battery backup. So that's a battery bank in case your phone dies when you're in an evacuation situation. Something else that's really great to have in your grab-and-go bag is a hand crank radio. Something with battery backup is really terrific.
Those are just a few of the things you should have in your go bag. For the full list, you can go to preparedbc.ca to go to build your kits. Now, I am not prepared in case of an evacuation. And we're not just talking fires. It could be anything, even living in Metro Vancouver. What about you, Darius?
I am also not prepared. I do not have a go bag, although I've been here a couple months and I still haven't finished unpacking, so maybe that counts.
Get on that first, I think.
Yes, I will finish unpacking and then pack my go bag up again, because none of the essentials are still packed. But let's take a look at the weather to see how much we're going to be needing maybe some of these go bags. Now, conditions are warming up. We're getting drier. Temperatures have come up a bit today through the southern interior and all the way up, even into the north of the province. That trend is going to continue tomorrow. We see temperatures come up even a little bit more, and then we're getting close to seasonal once again in the southern interior by tomorrow. And then heading into the weekend and into next Monday, we're going to see temperatures really climb. So for the southern interior, anywhere from 3 to 5 degrees above seasonal. Further up north, we're looking at temperatures into the 30s, which means 10 degrees at least above seasonal for those areas. So very unusual for the northern part of BC. Now, we can take a look at the rain that we saw earlier in the last 24 hours. We did see that rain materialize in the southern piece, not seeing all of it here by all means, because there was quite a bit of it last night, more than 24 hours ago, but definitely saw some very significant rainfall here as well. Doesn't look like we're going to get any more of that as a new high pressure system sets up and the province really dries out for at least the next few days.
Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, despite a summer of ongoing troubles, BC Ferries says it has been a record-breaking year for passenger traffic, with more than 21 million people using the service.
So for context, that's more people that pass through YVR. And YVR is the country's second largest airport. This is a big system. It's one of the largest in the world, and I think people forget that sometimes.
At the corporation's annual general meeting, its CEO said the ferry service saw an average of 500 sailings a day, with 85% going out on time. The Coastal Renaissance, which operates between Tsawwassen and Nanaimo, will be out of service until mid-October. Well, Abbotsford Church is looking to provide lumber and supplies for homes still affected by the November 2021 flooding.
The area that we really want people to know about is if they're trying to get lumber or supplies or baseboards, maybe your basement was flooded and you still haven't rebuilt that, or there's a bathroom or a bedroom. Those are the types of projects that we're trying to help people with the remaining funds that we have.
He says the church raised funds through its Abbotsford Disaster Response Coalition, and they have just over $300,000 remaining for those in need to rebuild. People living in a flood, emergency, or evacuation zone in Abbotsford are eligible for applications, and those can be submitted online at gatewaycrc.org. Well, a year after a Vancouver couple was killed in a head-on crash near Vernon, impaired driving charges have been laid. Tonight, Raisi Rafiq is looking at the impact the grandparents had on the Bangladeshi community here.
That's all we have now. These pictures with the kids.
It's been a year since Saranjan and Suparna Das died in a fatal car crash. Their family is still coming to grips with their sudden deaths.
The cascading effect of this loss, it's forever.
The couple died last August while on vacation in Vernon after they collided head-on with another vehicle.
They didn't take any leisurely trips, and the first time that they do, this is how they're killed.
They are survived by 4 children and 4 grandchildren. Charges have now been laid against 36-year-old Vernon resident Michael Rodine. The charges include 2 counts of criminal negligence causing death and 4 counts related to impaired driving causing death. But friends and family say the slow-moving justice system doesn't help fill the holes their absence has left.
It's affected the community as a whole, certainly. And it just, goes to show what grand human beings they were. But like our day-to-day, our minute-by-minute, it's like endless suffering for us.
Suranjan was a freedom fighter in the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. When he emigrated to Canada in the 90s, he continued his legacy for leadership.
We lost a big supporter, a rock country, because people has, any problem, there is Suranjan. There is no more Suranjan.
He was known for helping new immigrants get settled into Canada. As a frequent donor, he was also instrumental in cultural celebrations. Suparna worked at the Vancouver International Airport for 27 years as a screener.
She was friendly and she wanted to help people. She could be in a setting, a gloomy setting, and she could lift people up, lift up their spirits.
The loss has been especially difficult to grasp for the couple's young grandchildren.
It's very difficult to answer to my kids when they say, how come they went that way they did? How come there's no justice for this yet?
Friends and family are bracing for Rodine's first court hearing set for next month. The family says it is still holding out hope for justice. Raisi Rafiq, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, the province is giving $15 million to BC's food banks today as soaring food prices and rising inflation rates spawn record-breaking demands.
We are seeing increases in need among certain marginalised populations, certainly people who are on fixed incomes, and quite worryingly, a significant number of people who are both working or 2 household incomes, but still needing access to food bank services.
Funds will also go toward emergency events like the wildfires plaguing parts of the province and to addressing food access challenges in northern communities. Food programs within some school districts will also see some funding. Well, on this Ukrainian Independence Day, there's special significance for many here in BC who worry their family members are still living in a war zone.
First, feel proud that we still can say that we are Ukrainians and we are free. It feels sad because of what's happening right now. It feels sad also because the whole family cannot be together. And we feel strong that we will survive these hard times for us.
Her grandmother and brother are still living in Ukraine, and her father is a soldier. Canada has the largest population of Ukrainian diaspora outside of Ukraine. A celebration will happen this weekend at Third Beach in Stanley Park, and a demonstration will be taking place today in front of the art gallery. After the break, the ultimate nuisance for teachers in the classrooms, cell phones. To ban them or not? We'll hear what an expert says live next. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream tonight. In Edmonton, attractions and events around the city are offering entertainment for evacuees from the Northwest Territories. Attraction owners have dropped their admission fees or launched events just for those who are displaced. As Travis McEwen reports, it's a welcome thing for many who are on an unplanned visit to the city.
Remax Field hasn't hosted a baseball game for weeks. It's currently being used for family fun for evacuees from Yellowknife and other communities. From free pizza to t-ball and a few yard games, courtesy of the Edmonton Riverhawks.
seeing nothing, hearing nothing about anything other than evacuees, understandably so, and just wondered what we could do. And it's like, we can throw open the gates of this beautiful ballpark and help them take their mind off things for a few minutes.
The City of Edmonton is offering evacuees free admission to all rec centers, the John Jansen Nature Center, the Mintar Conservatory, and here, the Valley Zoo.
They think it's a vacation. Look at this for there.
Julie La Rochelle's 2 children have not minded being away from their Yellowknife home, as she and her husband took them to the Valley Zoo and the TELUS World of Science. All of it free of charge.
It's great because it's unexpected to come here, so we don't have much money or not all the things to do, so it's good to get this.
And a new offer is kicked off. The Edmonton Elks are giving away free tickets to their next game on Sunday.
When we were touring the north several years ago, the mayor of Yellowknife at the time, we got to know, and he personally reached out on the weekend and said, would you consider this? And we said, absolutely, even if only 10 people show up, we're good to go. But if all 3,000 show up, we've got room. And we've already had people coming to the ticket office to get their tickets.
It's an offer that's enticing for La Rochelle.
I like it. We might get ticket and go then.
As it's still not clear when evacuees will be able to head back north. Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton.
All right, with the start of school right around the corner, we are talking cell phones in the classroom. Yesterday, Quebec joined Ontario in wanting to ban phones in public school classrooms as soon as possible. Here in BC, the province has resisted so far on a wide-scale ban, with the exception of at least one high school in Sechelt. Dr. Shimi Kang is live with us now to talk more about this. She's a psychiatrist, a UBC professor, and the author of The Tech Solution, Creating Healthy Habits for Kids Growing Up in a Digital World. Shimi, first off, where do you stand on this? Should cell phones be banned in the classroom?
In general, we know the science is overwhelming, that cell phones interact with attention, is linked to anxiety, the list goes on. So yes, I'm in favor of limits and monitoring. I do think the word ban is tough for people. No one likes being told what to do, especially teenagers. So I think we can have more soft language around it, but definite limits and monitorings in cell phones, not just in the classroom, but also in the hallways and lunchrooms. Really important, that social time that's so essential in that classroom, in that school day.
Do we have any research in terms of what we've seen with children's behavior since cell phones became so prevalent in schools and the way that kids interact with each other?
Yes, absolutely. There's very good science that technology, cell phone use in general, is linked to increasing rates of anxiety, depression, body image disturbance, sleep deprivation, reduction of social skills, including the most basic of empathy. We see problems with even neck and posture and back pain. And studies show that when cell phones are banned or limited, we see improved attention, we see better grades, we see better sense of school community. Teachers are less frustrated in general. So it really is in a moment where we have a mental health crisis, when we have young people who are addicted to their phones virtually because of the way they're designed, we can't expect them to self-regulate, and bringing in common sense limits monitoring is a really good idea.
Are there any positives here? I know that sometimes cell phones can be used for research and things like that in the classroom.
Yeah, there's definitely positives. In the tech solution, I talk about healthy tech use. That's technology that leads to connection, creativity, learning. In a classroom, though, however, a lot of that can be done on laptops. And if there's not access to laptops, that's where teachers and administrators can make decisions to bring it in for educational purposes. What's happening, though, is an open policies are kids are on social media, they're watching Netflix at lunch, they're not connecting with each other, there's bullying, there's taking photos, recording their teachers. I see all kinds of stuff in my practice. So it really isn't an anti-cell phone message. It's how we use this. Very powerful technology. I call it the fire of our time. If we get it right, we will go further and farther than ever before. If we don't, we get burnt and we burn down the village. So we just have to be careful and intentional on how we use this device.
Dr. Shimi Kang is a psychiatrist, UBC professor, and the author of The Tech Solution, Creating Healthy Habits for Kids Growing Up in a Digital World. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, it's an image many have been waiting for in the legal saga of Donald Trump's indictments. There it is right there for you, a glimpse of the former U.S. president as an inmate. We've been keeping a close eye on his surrender in Georgia. More on how it went next.
Actors in the province of British Columbia have been treated like second-class citizens for too long.
About 300 of British Columbia's 1,600 actors marched to the offices of BC's Labour Relations Board today.
We cannot let our government decide that we can't strike. We cannot let
The Union of BC Performers is protesting several recent decisions that restrict the right of its members to strike, effectively making acting as essential a service as teaching or nursing.
My main complaint is I know that the producers they're in it to make money. They're not in it for my welfare, but they have the Labour Relations Board, they have the government deny us the right to strike and to collective bargain. It's just beyond my comprehension.
And ready, and action. All right, troops.
The Union of BC Performers, UBCP for short, believes the recent decisions by the Labour Relations Board are meant to keep the BC film industry free of any labour disputes that could scare away American producers. The union also fears it's being targeted by Hollywood producers to cheapen its rates, a development that could have international implications.
The problem is that the major Hollywood studios are here to execute an agenda. If they can set the precedent with the smallest union in North America, the next step is to go to the bigger unions and say, well, we got the precedent in British Columbia.
The lawyer representing one of the film productions in this dispute says Hollywood has larger issues to worry about than this.
Rather than negotiating on substance, some fairly minor points even, they've just said, no, we can't give you that because it'll set a precedent. And I don't believe that a show that's going to shoot for 50 days once, it sets a precedent for a long-term agreement.
We don't work non-union.
UBCP swears the fight isn't over yet. It already has the support of the Canadian Auto Workers and the Screen Actors Guild, which represents 95,000 American actors.
Let's go to Nova Scotia, where people there are still dealing with the impacts of the June wildfires, which were the largest on record. Kayla Hounsell spoke to some people finally starting to rebuild, and they have advice for those who are facing similar challenges.
Around here, this is a sign of progress.
We've been getting into the process of rebuilding. That's been slow initially, but it's coming along.
Brianne Carlson was among 150 homeowners in the Halifax area who lost everything when fire tore through at the end of May. Since then, the debris has been cleaned up, the foundation removed, the soil tested for contaminants.
You don't always know what questions to ask.
She's hoping her experience, terrible as it was, will help others just getting the devastating news they've lost their homes. She says acting quickly is the first step.
We were able to contact a builder and get them on board by that evening, so within 24 hours.
Experts say documenting every step of the process will also help.
Keep a copy of receipts. Be very careful to write down as much as you remember about all the things that were with your property before.
I didn't realize how much work it would be.
Ben McDonald lost his home in the Nova Scotia wildfires too. He warns coming up with that list of contents took more than 50 hours.
I think it's super important to request or even demand your adjuster to be local.
McDonald says in his experience, local insurance adjusters are vital because they have contacts with local restoration companies, which can speed things up. He also advises people to ask for a complete copy of their insurance policy, around 70 pages, not the 10-page summary many receive. And finally, find a support group.
One of the things that we found challenging at the start was we were not used to being the people that, needed help and needed to ask for help. And so getting comfortable with asking for help and taking it when you can get it is super important.
It is progress.
Both he and Carlson are hoping to be in their new homes by next summer. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
There are early suggestions of a rise in COVID-19 cases across the country. Positive tests and hospitalizations are on the uptick as drug makers seek approval for new vaccines. And as Lauren Pelly explains, updated booster shots are likely still several weeks away.
I don't want to get sick.
59-year-old Edwina Thomas got her last COVID vaccine almost a year ago. With infection rates rising again, she wants another shot before going back to her job as a school librarian.
I think it's just going to go through us like a tidal wave.
But federal officials say it could still be several weeks before updated shots are approved and rolling out to the provinces.
It is a difficult period, there is no doubt.
Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Teresa Tam says anytime there are new vaccine formulations, Health Canada has to make sure they're both safe and effective.
And that process takes time.
The guidance for most Canadians is to simply wait for the newest versions. They're more tailored to the virus variants circulating right now.
Just waiting is difficult, irritating, uncertain, but still the best thing to do.
This physician recommends spacing out your next shot 6 months or so after your last vaccine or infection. That's because even though antibodies to ward off reinfection will fade over time, deeper protection against serious illness will last longer.
Those of us who've had, 4, 5, 6 doses of vaccine, and most of us have had an infection by now, are pretty well protected.
But that advice isn't one size fits all. Experts say anyone who is pregnant, older adults, or people with other serious health issues may benefit from having another shot sooner, and healthcare providers should consider those requests.
People who are at especially high risk of severe outcomes may wish to consult their physician about whether or not the risk-benefit equation sways for them towards getting an earlier but older shot in advance of a new wave popping up.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Donald Trump's long and complicated political legacy is already full of lawsuits and indictments. But what happened tonight in Georgia is a clear standout moment. For the very first time in all of his legal woes, the former U.S. president was forced to pose for a mugshot. Paul Hunter has been watching this unfold all day.
His journey tracked almost every step of the way. Donald Trump landed in Georgia, set to make U.S. political history again. And here it is. From a jailhouse just north of the airport, the 45th President of the United States ordered to face the camera for a mugshot. Without a doubt, a remarkable image. All day outside the jail, mostly pro-Trump demonstrators mixed with hardcore security. After all, never before has this happened with any U.S. president, let alone one so divisive as Trump.
The death of our country. Could be.
So many in this country now left gobsmacked.
Really just a remarkable moment that a president has behaved in such a way that that sort of treatment would even be required.
Trump joins a lengthy list of others who've now also surrendered in this case, former lawyers, advisors, and his one-time White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, all accused in Georgia of scheming to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in that state. Back at the jail, Trump, who right now is also dealing with 3 other serious legal challenges, was released on $200,000 bail. If found guilty in this case, he'd face mandatory prison time. And yes, through it all, he remains the leading contender to carry the Republican nomination next year for the White House. At this week's debate for some of the other candidates, almost all of them said they'd support Trump if he wins. One who did not was former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
His character matters, the truth matters, and that his conduct is below, well below, what we should expect from a president of the United States.
But the real question, how many Republican voters feel the same way? After his release, Trump himself was defiant.
We did nothing wrong at all, and we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think is very dishonest.
The CBC's Paul Hunter reporting tonight. Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin is speaking for the first time about the reported death of mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin. The leader of the infamous Wagner Group is presumed to have died in a plane crash north of Moscow yesterday. But as Dominic Velitis explains, that has many wondering whether the crash was an accident or an assassination.
Putin has remained tight-lipped about yesterday's plane crash and Yevgeny Prigozhin's apparent demise in it. He has now broken his silence in a televised speech in which he sent his condolences to the families of those killed. He paid tribute to Prigozhin, described him as a talented businessman, someone he has personally known since the early 1990s. And Putin went on to say that he was only told about the plane crash this morning, that as far as he was aware, Prigozhin had only just returned from Africa, where he met certain official persons, in Putin's words. The Wagner Group, as we know, is active in Africa and is, Western analysts think, looking to widen its reach on the continent. Earlier this week, Prigozhin released his first video address since leading that short-lived coup against the Russian military in June, in which he says he was in Africa, Putin's words giving some weight to those claims. Crucially, though, Putin gave an apparent reference to Prigozhin's aborted mutiny. He described the Wagner leader as a person with a complicated fate, someone who made serious mistakes in life, but also someone who sought to achieve the necessary results for himself and, when asked, for the common cause. We're still none the wiser, though, as to what happened to Prigozhin exactly, what brought his plane down yesterday and killed him and 9 others on board. In his address, Putin said Russia will listen to what the investigators have to say on that front. That said, the Reuters news agency is reporting US officials as saying that they believe a surface-to-air missile originating inside Russia was responsible for bringing the plane down. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
Japan has started releasing treated radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean. Over the next 16 days, 7,800 cubic meters of wastewater will be pumped from the destroyed Fukushima nuclear plant into the ocean about a kilometer from shore. Today's initial discharge triggered protests inside and outside Japan. People have taken to the streets and beaches to condemn the wastewater release. Other governments in the region, including China and South Korea, have banned seafood products from Japan. The Fukushima nuclear plant was destroyed by an earthquake and tsunami in 2011. Since then, nearly 1.4 million tons of wastewater has been stored in the tanks at the site. Those tanks now need to be emptied and removed to allow for the ongoing decommissioning of the plant. The release of the treated wastewater has been approved by the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency and is expected to take about 30 years to complete. Well, sweater weather is upon us, and that means the return of pumpkin spice and everything nice. A taste dividing the people of Vancouver. Next.
This isn't the first time organizations are sounding the alarm about overcrowding at Pine Grove Correctional Centre. But the Elizabeth Fry Society of Saskatchewan, a nonprofit incarcerated women's advocacy group, says the alarm must continue to ring as overcrowding has created unsafe conditions for inmates.
People then have the potential to become violent when they're crowded in that way. We did have a report from one woman on Friday. She gave our receptionist a call and informed her that also their food rations were being cut, and also even their laundry was being reduced.
The province tells CBC that Pine Grove currently has 263 inmates. Its capacity is 166. Of those 263, 156 are on remand. Obrigovich says there is urgent need for housing for women seeking bail or being released.
If people were released on bail to housing that had a supportive component to it, which had addictions programming, mental health supports, stability, safety, and all of those things, you could help people so that they don't actually have to go back into institutions.
Obrigovich says the lack of housing can place women in desperate situations. Some commit poverty-related crimes, struggle to get away from abusers, end up homeless, and lose their children. Obrigovich says the government needs to get serious about finding a solution.
Saskatchewan maybe just needs to talk to some other governments in other cities and see what they're doing there, because we're heading to a crisis.
The province says when Pine Grove is maxed out, Corrections uses contingency spaces to increase capacity. And as for doing more for women's housing, the province recently provided $3.6 million to the Saskatoon Tribal Council for a housing unit in Saskatoon built to help women transition back into the community after leaving jail. Laura Sharpaletti, CBC News, Regina.
Well, you may think it's still summer, but one coffee shop here is here to tell us that it's fall. Today, Starbucks launched its fall menu, and with it, its infamous pumpkin spice latte, celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. Callie McTavish took to the streets to see how the people feel about its return.
I used to not like it, and then I had a girl who introduced me to it. And now every time August rolls around, I know that a PSL is right around the corner.
No opinion on them. I've never had one.
I love it. I mean, it's all right. Honestly, I haven't actually had it before, so I'd have to give it a try.
I really don't care for them. They're pretty cool, I guess, but you have it once and then you never really want to have it again.
I like them. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a pumpkin guy. I'm not a latte guy, but I think every once in a while I like a good one. You know, a little cold out keeps you warm. No complaints. So I would say I would recommend it to anybody who's not much of a coffee drinker.
The opinion of people right here in Vancouver today. Love it or hate it, or somewhere in between. The pumpkin spice latte has a culture of its own, including a Twitter account with more than 80,000 followers. And another thing, pumpkin spice latte may have been invented at Starbucks, but it is now sold in most coffee shops across North America and has been consumed by hundreds of millions of people worldwide. I'm not a fan. What's your take, Darius?
I can honestly say I have never had one. I'm open to it. I will drink one this year. I've heard it described as a hot pumpkin-flavored milkshake you can drink in the morning, and that appeals to me.
Okay, because it sounds way too sweet to me.
No, I'm all about it. But I am surprised to hear they have the fall menu already. We still have very summery weather so far, although not necessarily to come. So if we take a look here, you can see dry across the province right now. If we look over the next couple days, going to continue being dry, but as we get into mid next week, Tuesday, we start to see a bit of moisture sweep across the province. So some rain expected for the southern interior next Tuesday and Wednesday. Here in Vancouver and in Victoria, we can expect to get some rain, possibly starting as early as Monday evening, carrying right through Thursday. Now, it'll come in bursts. It might be some scattered showers. This is definitely stretching the models a bit, looking 5 days out, but it's just a bit of good news for people who are worried about what we were talking about earlier with that hot weather, that dry weather coming for parts of the southern interior. There is a bit of some good news in sight. And as this happens, temperatures will come down. We'll see much more fall-like, autumn-like, pumpkin spice latte weather, so to speak. Now, if you take a look at the watches and warnings in place, nothing across the province. The rainfall warning came down as that rain left the area, but lots of smoky skies bulletins in place because we have all this smoke sitting over the province in many places. And that is going to be moving down to the coast tomorrow. So we're going to be seeing it as well. You can see some hot spots, not as bad right over the fires as it has been because of some of this outflow wind just carrying the smoke over to us here in Vancouver. So wonderful. We can expect some pretty smoky skies starting tomorrow, really gaining steam overnight and then all through the weekend. Across the province tomorrow, things are looking pretty sunny, very clear in the north. We've got a brief spell of clouds tomorrow, not going to stick around for too long through the south, mostly just because of some marine air moving through the area. Overnight tonight in Vancouver, pretty seasonal lows. Expect a pretty seasonal morning tomorrow, just with lots of smoke. And then as we look ahead into the next week, we can expect sunny skies through the weekend, very warm in the interior. I only put smoke for tomorrow because it's hard to forecast, but expect smoky skies through the weekend as well, clearing out starting probably Monday evening into Tuesday as we see that rain and that cool air move in.
All right, thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, summer is prime time at Canada's national parks. The most popular, like Banff in Alberta, can attract millions of people. But there are others that register just hundreds of visitors. One of those is on the north shores of the Hudson Bay in a remote section of northern Manitoba. Bartley Keeves is one of the lucky few who has been able to get there.
It takes a helicopter flight from Churchill to reach Wapusk National Park, more than 11,000 square kilometers of low-lying land along Hudson Bay. It protects summer and winter habitat for polar bears, summer calving grounds for caribou, and wetlands that support hundreds of bird species. It's one of Canada's largest parks, but only about 200 people a year get to visit.
This is a special, very fragile landscape, and so it just simply can't support a lot of people.
Ryan Brook is a wildlife ecologist who's spent more than 450 nights of his life in the park, based out of this research compound, Nestor 1.
The wildlife and landscape is amazing, and it's true wilderness, and we're really, really fortunate to be able to be out here because it isn't accessible to everyone, and it's remote and it's quite expensive to get to.
The barrier isn't just the cost. The terrain in Wapusk is difficult. The weather's volatile, and polar bears pose a danger any time of year.
So right now I'm about 200 meters from the coast of Hudson Bay, where large male polar bears do spend their time during the summer. The constant presence of these large carnivores is one of the reasons that people aren't allowed to just walk around Wapusk National Park.
I would not come out to anywhere in Churchill or Wapusk without a firearm.
Russell Turner is the ecosystem scientist for Wapusk.
So just about 1 kilometer in front of us on the shore of Hudson Bay, we have a polar bear who's dug himself a daybed, and he's just resting out on that gravel ridge while we're here servicing this trail camera.
Still, a handful of people do get the chance to visit Wapusk, mostly Parks Canada staff, scientists, and their students.
It is absolutely amazing. I have never thought that I would ever get here. Every single step you take is breathtaking. There's so many things to look at. There's so many things to learn.
There's more than wildlife in the park. These ancient beach ridges, used for millennia by Dene, Cree, and Inuit, used to sit below the surface of Hudson Bay. They're bouncing back from the weight of the glaciers that receded 7,000 years ago. There are rockets littering the tundra, fired from the old rocket range near Churchill, and artifacts left behind from previous generations of scientists.
The Canadian Wildlife Service had a research program there at that tower at Cape Churchill. I don't think it's been used in a long time, but people used to sit up there and watch polar bears. You could see it swaying in the wind.
There are no plans to allow more tourists into the park. The permafrozen landscape is just too fragile.
There are places in and around Churchill that one can access and is open to many people in the public to see wildlife and see landscapes.
The scientists who come here say they know it's a privilege to visit somewhere so remote and so unspoiled. Bartley Kivas, CBC News in Wapusk National Park.
Well, parents of newborns often get gifts for their new arrivals. In Montreal, that will soon include a baby box from the city. Officials say it's the first initiative of its kind in the country, and the idea is to show that Montreal is a welcoming place to raise a baby and to offer a little support. John Ngala has the latest.
Je suis extrêmement fière de vous la présenter, cette belle boîte bébé.
Officials are calling the boxes a startup kit, a gift to let families know they're wanted. They're part of Projet Montréal's plan to give families an equal opportunity to succeed.
It's also about being proud of being Montrealers. I think it's really, really crucial. If you look at all the design, it's based also on the history of Montreal, so we want to bring this forward.
Inside them, you'll find clothes, blankets, diapers, and some vouchers to help parents enjoy places like the museum.
I think it's amazing. It's something that every new parent needs.
Emma Williams left Montreal for Vancouver 5 years ago. She's back in town for vacation with her 6-month-old daughter. She says the city's Welcome Baby Box program is a great idea.
Especially parents who might not be able to afford everything right away. Babies are very expensive, and all the money we can save before having to pay for daycare is definitely helpful.
The program was first announced in 2021 at the very beginning of Plante's second mandate, but it's taken some time to roll out. Officials say they had to follow internal procedures and work out the distribution system.
It does take a little bit of time to do that, but we're very happy about the process. Was a bit long, but it was fluid, and we're very happy to be here today announcing this.
They also say the boxes are a first in Quebec and a first in Canada that offers perks for parents.
It's great because, you give everything, lots of things very important for new parents because we need to buy that.
It's really great. It will help those new parents because especially for women, it's hard full-day work.
The boxes will be offered to all newborns to 1-year-olds, adoptions, and new arrivals. The city says the Welcome Baby Boxes will be available starting January 2024. Parents will be able to pick them up at any library with a proof of residence. John Ngala, CBC News, Montreal.
It's been missing for 11 years, but a GoPro capturing a huge cliff dive at Cultus Lake has reappeared. The hunt for its owner is next. Art can move you, and in some cases, you can move art. That's exactly what a professor in Newfoundland is trying to do. As Colleen Connors tells us, he's behind a project that's taking printmaking to unexpected places to show how accessible art can be.
This vibrant-looking thing on wheels is not a bike or a trolley. It's unexpected art. It's part of a project called Print Shop in Tow, where Andrew Testa takes his printmaking machine to areas all around the west coast of the province and encourages the public to try printmaking.
It's about getting people really excited about making and whatever comes out of that making and showing that anyone can make.
Testa has carried his portable print shop to 6 different spots this summer, rural beaches and hiking trails, with close to 100 people drawing and then creating their own prints.
It was very cool. When we were walking it down the street, there was a tourist bus at the time, and a lot of people were kind of like eyeing what we were doing and like skirting around it and weren't really sure what to make of it.
Printmaking is often really intimidating. The presses are really big. You have really specific studio spaces for them. So there's this kind of a fear sometimes that people have when they're kind of making a print for the first time. Whereas one of the things that I want to do with this press is really encourage people to show how fun and easy it is to do.
So how does it work? Well, to make a monoprint, first the artist draws a picture on this plexi material with water-soluble crayons. Then Testa places a damp sheet of cotton rag paper over top. He then uses the wheel to press the inked surface onto the paper, squishing them together to create a print.
It's just something that's really exciting to kind of continue to push the boundaries of what that is and how it works, and being able to put a press on a hiking trailer to really kind of take it anywhere that I want to go.
Testa says he still has a lot of places he wants it to go, and plans on collaborating with other artists to create and make prints. Testa says in September of 2024, many of the pieces created on this printmaking machine will be on display for everyone to see at a local gallery. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
A Chilliwack resident swims and free dives in his local lakes to find what people have lost.
He commented on the post, which is pretty awesome. Sometimes these things are pretty hard to find. As far as GoPro goes, I'm about a 50-50 shot in returning them. It's pretty hard to return because really all you have is the content that they have shot. So in this case, he took some selfies with him and his kid, which made it a bit easier.
Using an underwater drone, Clayton Helkenberg found a GoPro that had been lost since 2012. He recently posted about his lake find, and amazingly, the original owner commented on his thread. Helkenberg finds great joy in reuniting owners with their long-lost property, and he's been doing it for years. I don't know a lot about GoPros, but I'm surprised that the footage was actually still there after being underwater for that long. Pretty amazing stuff. All right, thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. I am off tomorrow. Leanne Young will be in the chair. Have a good night.